said you're an astronaut. You're an astronaut, yes?
Good to see your face, man.
So just to let everybody know what's going on, you are watching the 80s golden age of comedy. My name is Bruce Starr, and my co-host, Glenn Hirsch.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the show. And then we found this old Jewish man on the street who we thought made a funny here and there, so we invited him on the show. Welcome to the show, man on the street.
Hello, Mr. Schmulman. How are you? Have you ever been to Israel?
Oh,
we have.
I have friends.
I must tell you, you remind me so much of an old friend from way back when, Mr. Barry Diamond. Does that name sound familiar to you?
Who? Oh!
Barry Diamond.
Oh, yeah. I remember I was in Vietnam with him. I saved his life. Everyone that was in my company was trying to kill him. And I said, no, don't do that. That's why I remember that, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, you look so familiar. You look great. You look good. And
this is not my real hair, you know.
This is not your real hair?
Nope. And these are not my real breasts. Also.
I wouldn't. You know what? It's so lifelike. It's just remarkable to me.
It does look real, doesn't it?
It looks like they belong to you. They do. It's amazing to me.
Can I show you my breasts?
Sure.
Oh, that's what we've been waiting for. I mean, we can't start the show without some nudity. You asked, will there be nudity? That's the first thing you asked.
You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer.
Oh man, that's it. We're over. The good news is I got a pound. I got a pile of money here. I'd like to give it to you. If you could take it, it's all yours right here. I got it here.
No. I got plenty of money. As a matter of fact, I have so much money in my house right now. It's hard to find a place to sit. What I do is I watch football starting right now at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
And I've got so much cash in my house that every Sunday at halftime around 11:30, I shovel money off my balcony just to have more space in my house.
Lovely.
To put a table or a chair.
So Barry,
I do that for 15 minutes during halftime.
So Barry, let me ask you a quick question.
I'm not kidding. That wasn't a joke.
You never kid. So
not about money. Not about shoveling money off my balcony.
Here we go. I met you in 1975. The improvisation. When did you get there?
I got there in 1875.
It only seemed like that, man.
In 1975?
I was there in 1975. I came in June 1975. Seems like forever.
Yeah, right.
You were there You were there.
I was there already. I started there in about actually I started at the Improv in 1975.
Right at the beginning? January? February?
Yeah, at the beginning of I may have gotten there about a month before you.
Were you coming out of school? Where were you? Again, man, forgive me. We talked about it, but years ago. Where'd you go to school?
I went to West Point. I majored in comedy. I majored in comedy.
Okay, it only hurt
at the military academy.
so Barry, one of the things that I love to hear about, and I know Glenn does, is if we can hear your story from the first time you realized that you either like comedy or you wanted to be in comedy. I'd love to hear how you got to the Improv.
Well, the first time I ever did stand-up comedy, I was in college. I went to college in Alabama. That's not a joke. I'm not joking.
Oh, no, I know that. That's true. You did.
Yeah.
I know that now. Right.
I remember when I met Keenan Wayans, when the first time he came into the Improv,
Right.
he went to Tuskegee in Alabama,
Wow.
and we had that in common, and our relative blackness.
So how did that happen? How did you go on a stage? How did you have the cojones to,
Well, the first time I ever got up in front of any audience anywhere was in college. It was February 8th, 1971. I remember the date
Wow.
because some friends of mine said, you're very funny. Why don't you do a stand-up comedy thing the next time we have a big name entertainment at school? And I said, that sounds like a great idea. That sounds like it'd be fun. I mean, I know, a lot of people there, a lot of friends there that would come out and support me. I said, that sounded like a fun thing to do, having never been in front of any audience anywhere in my life.
No acting? No acting? You never did any acting, theater and stuff when you were a kid? None?
In college, I did theater. In college, I did theater. But it was bullshit. it was a small college in Alabama. Anyway, the next concert was the Allman Brothers Band.
Woo!
And they were at February 8th, 1971. They were arguably one of the hottest bands in the country, certainly in Alabama.
Right. And
I wrote up this comedy routine. I wrote up a routine about Midnight Cowboy, about the characters that Joe Buck would really meet if he came to New York, because I'm from New York. I wrote up this thing about Midnight Cowboy, and then another routine about goofing on the South, which was a very bad idea.
How much time?
Well, I'll tell you. The day of the concert, I went over to the student government office and I said I wanted to do a comedy routine that night of the show, and I said, "Is it okay? Can I have permission to do that?" And they said, "Well, it's not up to us. It's up to the Allman Brothers."
Right.
And he said that they're in the gym now. They're setting up. If you want to go ask the Allman Brothers if it's okay with them, it's okay with us. So I went over to the gym, Sartain Hall, and the Allman Brothers are setting up the gym, setting up the stage. The whole band is there setting up the stage with the roadies. And I went over to Dwayne Allman and I said, "Dwayne, my name is Barry Diamond. I go to school here and I do stand-up comedy." I said, "Would you mind if I did a set when you guys take a break?" And he said, "Well, we don't take a break." And I said, "Well, would you?" So help me God, I swear on my life.
Cool.
And he turned around to the rest of the guys in the band who had stopped what they were doing. And he said, "This guy is a comedian." He says, "You guys want to take a break tonight?" And he's going to do a comedy thing. And they looked around and they said, "Yeah, okay." I swear to God. And that night, I showed up in the gym in the middle of the concert, dressed in a suit and tie, like I knew all comedians on television dressed in a suit and tie. This is 1971, in front of an audience of about 6,000 kids that are just absolutely wrecked from smoking pot and drinking wine and just. So I go backstage in the middle of a 16-minute version of Whippin' Post, and the stage manager comes over to me, goes, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a comedy thing when they finish this song." He says, "You're going to do what?" I said, "I'm going to go out and I'm going to do. I have their permission. The band said that that they were going to take a break. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a short comedy routine." And I said, "I need you to give me an introduction." He says, "What do you want me to say?" I says, "Well, tell him I just did the Tonight Show." And he said, "You just did the Tonight Show?" And I said, "No." I said, "They don't know that." I said, just tell them to give me some credibility. Tell them I just did the Tonight Show. Do these people look like they watched the Tonight Show? I said, just go say it. So at the end of a 16-minute long whipping post, the band leaves the stage and the house lights come up, and the stage manager goes out and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, no, he says, please welcome, just to the Tonight Show, please welcome Barry Diamond. And the people in the audience were stunned. They couldn't believe what was happening. They couldn't believe in the middle of this unbelievable hypnotic experience with the Allman Brothers that the lights are up and there's a guy on stage telling
Oh my
jokes.
God.
So I think my first joke was how many of you people, whoever here ever stole stuff from Piggly Wiggly? And I said, you know, the Piggly Wiggly over here, it's the only Piggly Wiggly I've ever seen. It's got a rifle and shotgun section. I said, what's up with that? I said, I went over to the guy. I said, you have shotguns? And he said, yes. I said, can I see one? He goes, yes, sir. And I took it down. I said, do you have any shells? He goes, yes, sir. We got boxes of shells. And I said, can I have 2 shells? And he goes, what the hell do you want 2 shells for? I said, well, I want to fire off the gun, see if the gun works. If the gun works, I'll buy the gun. He says, you better get the hell out of here, son. Anyway, I never got into like instantly, as soon as I came on and opened my mouth, they started screaming at me. They started screaming, get off, you suck. Somebody kill this. Somebody shoot this guy. They were just screaming. And then the guy who was the student faculty advisor, I still remember his name was Marvin Vickers. He was a preacher. He came up, he put his arm around me, and he said, I think you've had enough, son. And I said,
so your first gig went well. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Allman Brothers came out, and Greg Allman pointed toward me and he said, ladies and gentlemen, a true citizen. Oh. And I have no idea what the hell he meant by that, what he was trying to say, but I went right. I left. I just took off. I was so shockingly humiliated.
Yeah, but after that, Barry, that gave you the feeling you had to do it again, or what was it? Out of spite, you had to do it again?
Well, the next time I really thought about it seriously was, honest to God, when I saw Freddie Prinze on the Tonight Show.
Really?
With Sammy Davis Jr. was on the panel, and
how many years later?
It was 3 years later.
3 years later. So you were graduating college?
It was 74. I think Freddie did his first Tonight Show in 74.
To me, you see, I got to the Improv by accident. A girl I was going out with took me there, and I saw that night on that stage, sitting in the back of the room, Freddie Prinze, Jimmy Walker, Alan Zweibel, Richard Lewis, Elaine, Whedon, Finkel and Fay, remember those people? And
yeah.
And I said, wow, what the hell is this? I had no idea. I was a theater major and just hanging out, doing improvs with friends at college. Same situation. It just came to me. I don't know how you were. Did you watch like the Tonight Show when you were a kid and see the stand-ups and go, I got to do that?
Well, I was better than that. I was in the Catskill Mountains every summer.
You saw, wow.
I was in the Catskills every summer with my family. And then when I was in college, I worked in the Catskills. In the dining room at the Nevele Hotel.
Oh, I know the Nevele.
And I used to be at the show every night, and we would go to other hotels. I remember going to see Shecky Green at the Concord. One of the waiters that I worked with over the summer is Larry Feld. He started with Shecky Green in Miami. They were a team. Larry and Shecky, and he knew Shecky, and he made arrangements for us to come see him at the Concord
Wow.
over the summer. That was one of the most thrilling nights of my life.
Really?
That was really, really thrilling.
How
Because
old
you
were you?
know, we went backstage. We went up to his hotel room. We hung out with Shecky Green.
18?
That
Were you
was really
17,
thrilling. But the first time that I was at the Improv was in 1967 or 68.
No.
I was 16 or 17 years old, and my a guy I went to high school with was a guitar player, and he said there's a club downtown that I play guitar at for this singer called the Improv, and they have singers and comedians, one right after the other. That's singer, then the two comedians, then a singer. He says it's unbelievable. It's a little club on the west side, and I play guitar for this guy who's a great singer, and they have big stars that come in. He said Richard Pryor comes in there, and Rodney Dangerfield, and Stiller and Mira. He says you never know who's going to show up. So I was too young to even go there. I was 17, I guess. So I went with my older brother and his fiance and my girlfriend, the four of us. And that was the first time that I was ever in the Improv. And I remember Bud vividly. I remember him vividly in a white T-shirt and a goatee. And I remember I saw Lenny Schultz. I saw Jimmy Walker. I saw, Richard Lewis.
67. 67.
Yeah. This was in 67 or 68. It wasn't later than that because I was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the first time I was ever in there, and I thought it was such a cool place. It was so cool. It was so like New York, like bohemian kind of a thing, with the brick wall in the back and everything. That became an iconic wall.
Wow.
But that was the first time I was there, and the first time after the debacle in college was exactly 4 years later in 1975 at Catch a Rising Star. I got on at Catch a Rising Star.
Did the Catch first?
Yeah. Well, actually, I auditioned at Catch first, but Elaine Boozler running the auditions when you auditioned?
No, Judy.
Judy Orbach?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was right before Bud was in the process of moving out to LA. And Chris was moving in a little bit. Him and Zamuda were working out, all that stuff that happened between him and Bud. And Judy was running the audition night that night. And I had to come back this very next night personally. I came in, I did my thing. And then the next night, I had to do it for Bud again. And then I was invited to come and hang out at 12 o'clock at night for the next 2 years. But that was it. Did you work around the city at all? Or you went right to Catch?
No, I worked at a lot of these other smaller clubs. That's where I met at Seinfeld at the place called the King's Pub.
Yes, I remember the King's Pub. We had to work in front of a bar there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I think I met Brooke in there.
And then there was a place up in Harlem called Pearl's Place.
I never went there, but I knew the place. Never went there.
So Barry, how did you get your first 5 minutes? And how long did it take you to get your first 5 minutes before you felt comfortable being on stage?
I actually got real good real fast. And then I just gradually petered off completely.
Not at all. But the thing is, you were not the Shecky Green kind of comedian. You were more character driven. You didn't write stand-up stuff. Take my wife, please stuff.
No, I did not write a typical monologue. It was more like one of the greatest compliments that anybody in the audience ever gave me was that I reminded them of Jonathan Winters,
yes,
who was my hero. in comedy that I finally got to meet before he died at his house in Santa Barbara.
Oh, wow.
That was really quite thrilling to meet him, because he was such an influence on the stuff that I did, and Robin Williams also, that he was Robin's greatest influence. May they
Barry,
both rest in peace.
Barry, what was Jonathan like when it was just you and he in a room? What was he like?
Well, when I met him, it was a couple of years after his wife had died, and she was his high school sweetheart, and she was basically his whole life. I think her name was Elaine. And after she passed away, it really took the wind out of his sails. He had a house that was filled with photographs and memorabilia and artwork that he did. Every piece of the wall in the entire house was covered with some kind of photograph of him and God knows who, or somebody else famous, and artwork that he did, because he was an artist also. And we took him out to lunch, and he was very, very funny, very, very, very lucid. You know, he's also very frail. He started to start to improvise this sketch about being when he was a boy, that he was the tailor for the Pope, that the Pope came to his village, and that he had this incredible gift of being able to create these amazing garments. And the Pope heard of him, and he starts. I mean, I can't do it justice. But the Pope come to my village. He come to see me, and he put his hands on my head. He said, "I want you to make me a beautiful garment." I forgot. And it just goes on, and it was just. I said, "Shit, man! I wish I had a tape recorder."
Yeah, Barry, but you worked like that. That's the way you worked. Absolutely, I'm sure you still do. You just to me, it always seemed like stream of consciousness. You go up on stage. You had an idea when you walked on that stage what you were going to do. You're the first person to ever introduce me to Bruce Springsteen. You remember, right?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Right? You used to go up on stage for a while,
Yeah.
start singing a song, and I didn't know who the hell that was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like,
yeah.
Hi, how you all feeling today? Talking to the audience. You came from another place. So anyway, that's the way you would work. You work very similar to, as I see it now, as the way that he worked too. You know what I mean? Just stream of consciousness.
I actually a lot of the stuff that I created was done on the stage. I would get an idea for something, and on the stage, and then it just kind of developed itself, rather than going home and just say, well, what do I want to write about?
Did you do that at all?
Not really.
Really?
Not really. It seems like most of what I did was pretty organic. It came out of wherever I started to go with something, and then gradually, I built up a
pieces, right?
Pieces of material that I would work my way in and out of somehow. That I put it all together. But that was one of the things that I think actually hurt my career, was that I was not clearly definable. It's much better if you have a clearly definable thing that the audience can identify you with. Like Yakov Smirnoff was the Russian comic, and other people were known for whatever gimmick that they did. Howie Mandel had that bag that finger bag, that the hand bag that he had, and but there was something generally distinctive. The guy that talks about this or something. I talked about a variety of things and a variety of different characters, so it was hard to nail down who I was and what I was doing, which kind of hurt me, I guess.
Right way though, but you've made a living. You've done this. You wherever you might have done, you didn't have to do anything else. You grew as an artist and as a comedian.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I look. I'm very, very grateful. I did what I love to do. I had a great time doing it. I traveled all over the world doing it. I was, very well respected by certainly my peers and my audiences.
yes,
If I wasn't doing well, I don't think I would have been able to have done it for 40 something years up until this past March.
that's right.
If I wasn't doing it well, and if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. And
Right.
now there's no place to do it.
Yeah, no, no. We're all been forced into retirement here in some ways. Hopefully it'll turn around. But my my wanting to talk with you, besides seeing you and sharing our experiences, is to know how you got going, how you work. Because again, you were more unique than most of the guys there. You stuck out in terms of all the guys we had, and there was a group there. We saw each other every night for 3 4 years, you know, and you worked every night. Every night seemed to me. I mean, I used to MC, bring you up. I never knew who was coming up on that stage. I knew Barry Diamond was coming up to do his pieces, but it wasn't Barry Diamond per se. Like, how you doing, folks? Good to see you. You know what I mean? It
Right.
was you doing what you do.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't. I was never a typical monologist,
No, not at all.
I was never structured. I never had any real structure to what I was doing, and that also was probably not good.
Yeah, but those were formative years, so that's what you should have been doing. I remember Chris Albrecht saying, I don't know, we were doing something, and Albrecht said, "Well, you know what? You'll do this, you do this, and then Barry, he can do anything." So he knew that you could fill that 15 minutes with something unique and fun. And believe me, I saw it. I was there.
When you first started there, was Bud was looking for a place in Los Angeles to open, right? So
He
he
had
was
just
going
started, right,
he was going back and forth from LA to New York, right?
which I found out later on, right? And it was, I believe I might have been the last person he accepted there before he made the permanent move. So, but I
Right.
had to work in front of him in
Well,
order.
you weren't there too long before Chris Albrecht came in.
No, not at all. In fact, I probably was there when Chris Albrecht came in. When Chris came in, he was already, I guess maybe, I don't know how it worked, but he was the manager that I knew.
Right, right, yeah.
And Judy was running the joint anyway. But then I ended up working the door. I ended up hanging out. I was there anyway. You know, I mean, did you start working at the Improv? You went to Catch, and then did you come over to the Improv right away, or somebody brought you over?
Yeah, once you got on at one club, you pretty much, got on at the other club also.
Yeah, I went the other way. I went the Improv first, and then I went over to Catch. But I stayed on
Right,
line to Catch too.
right,
I
right.
didn't get invited in.
Yeah. Well, you didn't work that much at Cats?
I started to later on, but the first few years I was primarily just improv,
Uh-huh.
improv. Then I started MC, and then I
What about what about what about the comic strip?
yeah, that too. I had to work. I remember auditioning for Bob Wax uh, in the afternoon. The club was not open yet, but he was looking for acts. So yeah, the comic strip. I was there right at the beginning. You worked there, didn't you?
No, I really didn't. I
No, huh?
really didn't. Uh, I felt like I had my hands full with Catch and the Improv that I was getting on and I was also emceeing the shows at Catch and the Improv also. And
Yeah,
everybody hated when I emceed because I did too much time
yeah.
in between the acts.
Well, we all faced that later on in life. I got to say
Yeah.
too.
And I remember I used to give people sometimes just purposely terrible introductions. Well, I didn't do it often, but I did it a couple of times just to see if I give somebody an introduction that is so bad that the audience just can't believe that this guy could be this terrible. And I did it with Ronnie Shakes,
Oh,
and he got really mad about it. I don't blame him, but I was just kidding around. I was just kidding around. It was late at night. It was like 2:00, 2:30 in the morning, and Ronnie Shakes was a great comedian.
yes.
May he rest in peace. Also, he died so young. But he was a great comedian. I brought him up at like 2:30 in the morning. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we save obviously the very, very worst people for 2:30 in the morning. If this guy I'm about to bring up was any good, this guy would be on to like 9:00, 10:00. But it's like 2:30 in the morning. There's like 6 of you out there, and we only bring this guy on to get you guys out of here. He is that horrible. He's not is he just not funny, but he may make some of you angry and maybe even hurt your feelings and cry. But I'm going to bring him up anyway. Please welcome Ronnie Shakes." And and Ronnie looked at me on the way up. I mean, there were 6 people there, for Christ's sake. It's 2:30 in the morning. I was just playing around with him. I figured whatever I said, certainly he could recover from that very quickly because he's that funny and talented. And there's only 6 people out there. And anyway, he wasn't too happy about that. Then another time, do you remember Shelley Ackerman, the waitress?
She also passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cesar Shamil, remember? Cesar Shamil.
Yeah, that's what I was about to tell you. She changed her name, her singing name, from Shelley Ackerman to.
She had been a waitress there. She was a waitress.
Yeah, right. She was a waitress there, and she would come up and sing these Broadway torch songs in between the comics. And one day she came and she changed her name to Cesara Jamil. Yes. So I was talking to Larry David, and I said, "What is this name? This name is ridiculous. This is the stupidest name." I said, I call her Jamil the desert fox. Oh, after Edwin Rommel. Oh. So I brought her up one night. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jamil the desert fox." And she got so pissed off.
No, I know she took it. I remember Bob Shaw emceeing, and he brought everybody up that night as Cesar Jamil.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Cesar Jamil. Oh God. Oh yeah.
Hey Barry, what was the transition when you're fully in New York? When did you start thinking about LA, and how did that all come about?
And show business, right?
Well, it was obvious that sooner or later, everybody's going out to Los Angeles because that's where all the television is. And if you want to get on TV, unless you're going to do local East Coast shows in Philadelphia, like Mike Douglas or something like that, everything was out in Los Angeles. And in August of 78, Norman Lear came in and to the Improv, and he was about to leave Tandem TAT Productions and turn it over to Alan Horn. And I don't know why he was in there, but I had a great night. He saw me, and I had an agent in New York, and he wanted to find out about a development deal with me for TAT Productions, for Norman Lear's production company. So apparently the agent put something together, and I came out to LA, and I got a development deal because they were giving out development deals to comedians left and right. Yeah. And after the success of Gabe Kaplan's show and Chico and the Man It was such a gigantic success
Right.
that they started looking specifically for stand-up comics to build shows around. So I got a development deal for $50,000, and Alan Thicke was commissioned to write a show for me for CBS called Singles Complex, which he really didn't do a lot of work on,
Right.
and CBS never picked up the pilot to go into production. But they were throwing money around like crazy, so I got $50,000 to tie me up for like 6 months, so that I didn't sign with anybody else. Basically, that's what they were doing. They were signing comics up for like 50 grand or 100 grand, just so that they got you in their stable in case lightning struck. It's not a lot of money for them
Right.
to invest in somebody that had the potential to be a star like Robin Williams did.
You moved out there? You moved out there then?
So I moved out in September of '78, and I stopped off at the Improv in Vegas. Bud had opened up an Improv in Vegas,
Right.
and so I went out to work a week in Vegas before I went out to Los Angeles. So I worked at his Improv in Las Vegas for a week, and then I went out to LA in September of '78, and never moved back to New York again.
Yeah, well, you really weren't in the Improv as long as I was, certainly. So you were there. I knew you for 75, 76, 77, and you were gone by 78. I didn't move out here. Well, I was on the road myself. I started working about 1980 with Manilow down in Atlantic City, but I didn't move out to LA till '84. So you were out pretty early, '78. Wow. You worked at the Comedy Store?
Yeah, for sure. The Comedy Store, and the Improv, and there was a strike at the Comedy Store in February of '79. Boy, the Comedy Store was a very, very hot place.
Yeah.
I mean, that place was
Every night.
Every night. I mean, you had Robin Williams in every night, and this is when Mork and Mindy first took off, when it first came out. I remember actually in August of '78, Elaine Boozler brought Robin Williams.
Yes, we were all there that night.
She brought Robin into the Improv, and we never saw him.
No.
We never knew before that night. I never saw him. Did you?
Never. She said
San Francisco guy.
I remember her saying, Chris,
Right.
You gotta put this guy on. He's
Right.
killing every time out in LA, every time a producer or a director comes in or a writer comes in, he gets the job. So you got to put this guy on. And, we all remember that night.
Yeah. I remember I was standing next to Larry David, and he said to me, he said, this guy doesn't use the microphone because he's walking all over the room. He,
Right.
he just he leaves the stage. He leaves the stage and he starts walking around the room doing soliloquies from Hamlet.
Yes.
At everybody's table, and we never saw anybody like that.
Yeah, no, I remember where I was standing too. It's amazing those moments. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, and I was thinking about going out to Los Angeles, and I remember I said to Larry, I said, man, if this is the caliber of the general talent in Los Angeles, this is unbelievable. So I was actually a little intimidated, but there was nobody like Robin.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But yes, we all remember that night. So we got you out to LA. Now, Bruce, you had a history at the Comedy Store, right?
Not as much as the Improv. I was pretty much at the Improv every night, and then when my personal appearance agent role kicked in, of course I go and wait for the guys to finish and in the back room there and hang out in the back and along the hill there. But I never did go to that place where the guys lived. Never was invited there. There was a whole guys running in and out. I'm sure you have memories about that.
I was never up there. At the place that Mitzi had above the comedy store.
Yeah.
Crest
where all
Hill.
the guys lived
It was called
while
Crest
they were
Hill.
working.
Was it called Crest Hill or something like that?
Geez, I don't remember.
Yeah, I was never there. I was never. I never. There were a lot of sycophants, comics that if they had their head far enough up Mitzi's ass, she might give them better spots.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do that.
Right.
But how did you pick the store rather than the Improv? Because I don't remember you that much at the Improv. So how did you go from the Improv in New York to the store out in LA?
Well, I came out to the Improv in Las Vegas for that week, and then of course I would work at the Improv in Los Angeles. Bud opened up a club where it still is on Melrose, but he wasn't doing as well as the Comedy Store was, because the Comedy Store had been there for about 5 years, and the Comedy Store had the very, very best location on earth for a comedy club. You could not have, you talk about location. The Comedy Store is on the Sunset Strip, right in the middle, in the heart of the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, in a phenomenal venue with three different rooms under one roof. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And naturally, I started coming over to the Comedy Store, and people knew that I had some development deal with Norman Lear, so that created a buzz. I remember Jay Leno had his head up my ass when I first came out here. He actually took me to get a rent-a-car when after I arrived, and he had me over his house with my girlfriend for dinner. He took me up to the Hollywood Hills on his motorcycle, which to this day may be the most terrifying ride I've ever been on in my life. But Jay was out here. He'd been out here for about a year.
But don't you think the evening at the Improv shows really started the buzz? That was a smart move on Bud's part. Whoever brought that to him.
Yeah.
Him on the map, because that.
Yeah, that really started to saturate the market with stand-up comedy.
Right.
Because that was 5 nights a week, that show.
Right. But everybody was on it. I remember traveling the country at that time. Then comedy clubs opened up, and I remember going home after the show, wherever I might be working, going back to the hotel room and going, gee, let me see which one of my friends is on tonight. So, it opened up that whole world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And certainly
Did you do much of the comedy clubs? You did them all, right?
You mean around the country?
Yeah, you did them all.
Well, I didn't do them all, but I certainly, I certainly did enough of them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it paid us a good living, and got to see the country. Absolutely. But then you started. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think, weren't you working with the police or managed by the police? Management?
Yeah. Well, Miles Copeland was my manager.
How'd that happen?
He saw me. He was in the audience. He was in the original room, and
Sure.
And he called me, I think, and he asked me if I wanted to do a record album.
Wow.
Because he had his own record label, IRS Records, and I said yeah. So we did a record album, and I toured with the Police for a while. I didn't perform with the Police, but I went over I did a lot of work in the UK, and I toured around with the band, which was pretty exciting. you know,
The
on
band
huh?
was the band or the police?
The Police.
Oh,
No,
you
the
didn't
Police.
work, you didn't open, you didn't warm up? Did you
No,
ever
man.
do warm up for anybody?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I did it. Do you remember the Bijou in Philadelphia?
of course. I worked there a bunch of times. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was.
And then the Cellar Door in Washington,
I never worked there. I never worked there.
a
Uh,
couple of times. Same
yeah,
kind
but
of club, small club, you know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I like these small like jazz clubs, like the Bijou.
You worked the
That
bottom
was,
line?
yeah. I worked at the Bottom Line.
I never get that shot. I never
The
get that.
Bottom Line was a prestigious gig for a comedian
Yeah, it was.
to open for somebody. Yeah, I did. I did the Bottom Line a couple times, and I did the Bottom Line when I was on tour with the National Lampoon Show. Uh, in 19, actually shortly after I started. Um, I got the Lampoon Show. I think I got the Lampoon Show at the end of 1975 when
Really?
Saturday Night Live went on. Uh, they took the cast for the most part out of the National Lampoon Show.
Right.
John Belushi, Gilder Radner, Chevy Chase, uh, Bill Murray, Brian Doyle Murray. Uh,
Garrett Morris. No, I
I
think
don't,
he came from nowhere.
I don't know if Garrett. I think Garrett was in the Lampoon, but they took basically the whole cast of the National Lampoon Show and put them on Saturday Night Live. Dan Aykroyd came out of Second City, I think, Toronto.
So they had to fill that show again. They had to refill it, restock.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But the one that I did was it was produced by Ivan Reitman,
Right.
and it was a bus and truck tour. I did it with Meatloaf was in the show.
Who I opened
Uh,
for and traveled with.
oh no, you're kidding.
No, no.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was tough. We played softball against him too, and I met him there. And then I started working with him up in Boston. And again, the same thing, you know. And that was when he was, you know, bat out of hell time. And I'm backstage. I don't know anybody, and they're just screaming meat, 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 meat. And
Yeah.
I remember somebody standing next to me and looked at me and said, "You better be meat." And I had to
Uh-huh.
go out and fill that spot. That was tough. But I ended up walking past in the dressing room. I walked by a guy tuning up a guitar. I look in, and it's a guy I grew up with. Bruce Kulick was the lead guitarist. I don't know. I didn't even know he played guitar when we were kids. Who was the lead guitarist for Meatloaf, and later went on to be the lead guitarist in Kiss.
Wow.
Fascinating, man. So
Wow.
that was, you know, you meet these people who you knew another place. So that was my experience with Meatloaf. So I knew he was an actor because I saw him in in Rocky Horror.
When I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I was sitting next to Meatloaf in Philadelphia.
No kid. See,
We were on tour in Philadelphia when the movie came out. The movie was out about 3 days, and I was playing in Philly in the afternoon. So in my show was Meatloaf, Ellen Foley,
right.
who sang on Bat Out of Hell, and toured with them for a couple of years, and Jim Steinman, who wrote Bat Out of Hell,
Right. Right.
was the musical director, and he traveled with us and played the piano in the show that we did. So I spent most of my time with Jim Steinman because he was a genius. He
Yeah.
was brilliant, man, and incredibly funny. A gigantic Yankee fan, big baseball fan, and but abs so funny, so talented, so smart. But he wrote Bad Out of Hell. He wrote the whole album. And when he was writing it, we were on tour, and we would, wherever we would go, pull into a school or something, he would go off with Meatloaf and rehearse. They'd rehearse the songs on the album, and Steinman told me, he says, Meatloaf, when he's on, he's when his voice is good and he's in good shape, there's nobody better. He had an incredibly powerful
Yes.
voice.
I know. I saw him. I was there. I watched it a number of times. Listened to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but he was a total diva. Yeah, I mean, you talk about a diva, man, oh man, this cat was a real diva, and he was like a juggernaut. He was like larger than life.
Right.
What kind of things that he would do that would make him that way, that made him stand out?
Well, it was just, his presence, and I mean, when he walked on the stage, just his size preceded him. That is in just that in itself was so intimidating. He's like a
Mountain. He was a big man with
yeah.
long hair. So
Yeah, and quite out of his mind. he was pretty nuts.
But even as an actor, he would be that way. Even in the show.
Yeah, he closed the show, the last number, and he just stretched it out. He just stretched out the end of the show. That it was just ridiculous. It's.
Well, Barry, then you got that show very early in your career. 70s.
Yeah, I was doing this for less than a year.
Were you doing characters in the show that you were developed on the stage when you were working? Your characters, or they were scripted?
They were scripted. They were scripted. I did some of it was out of the magazine. I did. Remember Bernie X?
No, I'm not that familiar with their work.
The cab driver. There was this filthy, foul-mouthed cab driver that Jerry Sussman wrote regular stories about Bernie X, and he just gets these people in his cab that he picks up at the airport, and he just cursing about having sex with Jackie Kennedy, and just boasting about his sexual prowess to two complete strangers from Iowa in the back seat. And he's telling him that the hotel they're staying is, don't stay at that hotel. It's a shithole. What do you want to stay there for? And it just get philosophical and political with people that he didn't know, and just doing a rant while
Right.
people are sitting in the back of the cab. It was a great. It was a great character. Really, really fun to do. And I did. Did you ever see me do the thing? The man walks into a nightclub with a girl on his arm. You must have seen
Yes.
me do that.
Yes.
That bit. It's
Yeah.
about a 5-minute circuitous routine about with all kinds of cliche lines from comedians. That
Yes.
actually Brian Doyle Murray wrote that I did in the show.
Okay, I get you. So that was from the show.
Yeah, they brought me out as Jewish. Please welcome the comedy stylings of Jewish, and I would come out in a tuxedo, and I do a monologue. Thank you very much. You're beautiful. Thank you. Man walks into a nightclub with a beautiful girl on his arm. The show begins, and the comedian comes out for his first show of the evening. Comedian says, a man walks into a nightclub with a beautiful girl on his arm. The show begins. Comedian comes out for his second show of the evening. Comedian says, man walks into a nightclub with a beautiful girl on his arm. The man in the front row says, just a minute, I think I heard this before. Comedian says, well, maybe you caught my first show of the evening. The man says, no, I just walked in here. I says, well, it could have been you. A guy looked just like you, walked into the nightclub with a beautiful girl on his arm. It could have been your twin brother. The man says, my twin brother's dead. The comedian says, "What is this, a wake?" The man says, "I don't have to stand for this." And he stands up and he walks out of the nightclub out onto the sidewalk. Comedian says, "Are you out there? I can hear you breathing." The man says, "I'm holding my breath." Comedian says, "Well, I'm holding your wife." Just then, the man comes walking back into the nightclub with another beautiful girl on his arm. Anyway, this thing goes on for like
God,
5 minutes.
my God.
And it was really a brilliant monologue.
He sounds like Gilbert would work that stuff, man.
Yeah. And actually, Jim McCauley, who was the notorious booker for the Tonight Show back when we were starting out, he saw me do that at the Improv, and he wanted me to do it on the Tonight Show. He said Johnny would love this.
Right.
And Bud was managing me, and Bud, I said, "Bud, I'd love to do it, but I didn't write it. I did it in the Lampoon Show, and I don't think, I can do it without, I don't know, the permission of the Lampoon or of Brian Doyle Murray." So Bud said, "Well, he knows Brian, and he'll get permission from Brian," and he never did. He just totally dropped the ball, and I'm waiting for him to get permission for me to do this, and he just didn't do it. So finally, I asked McCauley if I could do something else, if he'll let me, do something else, and he said yeah, and I did the bit about how I got started in show business when I was a little baby in a shoebox.
Yeah, I remember that story.
That story.
Yes.
So I did that instead, and I got invited back.
That was the high-pitched character's voice, right? That high-pitched voice.
Yes. I want to say how I got started in show business. I remember I was 5 weeks old. My parents had abandoned me outside in front of this nightclub. They leave me outside the club in a little shoebox. And the club owner, he come walking in. He see a little baby in a shoebox, and he goes, "Hello, baby." And I look up, and I tried to explain to the club owner that I have no place to live. And he tried to explain to me that it's a $2 cover charge.
Let me ask you a question. You think you could do that stuff today? Just bullshit we have to deal with. Sad to say, it's hilariously funny stuff. Funny, character-driven, but yet I think this generation, this world we live in today, man, you got to be so freaking careful. It's dangerous.
Yeah, I know. It's well, let's face it. You couldn't do All in the Family today.
Right.
Because you couldn't do a show like that. You certainly couldn't do Sanford and Son today.
It's true.
There's a lot of stuff you couldn't do. You couldn't do the Jack Benny show today.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just, the world we live in today. It's gone 100 years backwards.
Yeah, well, it's important that when you watch something, that's cultural or artistic, that if you're going to criticize something, you got to see what's in the heart and soul of what's being said.
I agree.
People don't just say stuff to offend people. I mean, that should be obvious.
No, but it's not. It's not obvious anymore.
Now it's just whatever, everything is taken literally.
Right.
Everything is taken literally, and people are walking around on eggshells around each other, and that's not healthy either.
No, not at all. I agree. When you take everything literally, you're going to offend somebody every second of the day.
I've always said there's a significant distinction between making fun with people and making fun of people. There's an obvious distinction. There's nothing subtle about the distinction. You should be able to tell if someone is, making fun with people, in a spirit of friendship and love, or if someone's is being just an asshole and
yeah, you can see that
being actually being mean.
Barry, Bruce, Rickles couldn't get started today.
Oh,
Rickles.
No, right.
Rickles wouldn't work. Even Shecky Green might have a problem. I mean, you can't just go out and riff. You can't. It's amazing. You can't. A white man can't do a black man's voice, or a black guy can't do an Asian man's voice,
Right.
or it's insanity. I don't know. You can't. How do you work? I don't know how they get started today. Forgive me. I don't know what they.
Well,
I don't know. And there seems to be no boundaries, stand up wise. But yet you can be called out for anything. It's bizarre. Bizarre.
yeah. Well, look, man, we're living in a bizarre time. This is a strange. This is a strange, strange time. I really believe that you and I, in our lifetime, have seen absolutely the greatest time in America, the richest time, uh, culturally and economically, uh, and that it's it has been on a decline.
Yeah, and that's it.
Uh,
But you can see it for most in stand-up comedy. What offends people today wouldn't have touched anybody. I mean, could Pryor's do his thing today? I don't know. I mean, it just frustrates me in that sense. Talking to somebody like yourself, you know.
yeah, well, times change. It's impossible to work on a college campus without offending somebody
You
with
can't you
something
can't do a
with
gay themed
with
piece if you're
something.
not gay. You can't do a black piece if you're not what's considered a black themed piece.
Right.
You're not a black man. Chinese, you can't do a
Right.
an
They insist that you be authentic to who you are. Where the whole world and history of comedy has been to be making fun with other people, with other cultures. It some listen, some accents are absolutely funny. They're undeniably funny. It has
agree.
nothing to do. It has nothing to do with saying these people are stupid or that they're nothing to do with their intelligence or their status as human beings. It's just part of life, and if you can't be critical or comment on life, uh, that's what people who work in the arts do.
Well
You
said.
comment you comment on life and the world, through whatever artistic gift that you were given, be it music, comedy, drama, whatever.
I wonder how a Mort Saul would do in the present day, someone who came out and just called it like it was.
Well, it's funny, but up until March, Mort Saul was going on regularly at the Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley. Uh, he,
Outside San Francisco, really?
yeah, he had a regular show there. I think on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, or semi regularly up until like March. He was still going on at this lovely old theater called the Throckmorton in the heart of Mill Valley. I mean, I was never there to see it, but he did it
Yeah,
just about
Mark
once
Pitt's,
once
that's
once a
Mark
week.
Pitter's place, right? Mark Pitter?
Right,
Right.
right, right.
Yeah, but I mean, what is Saul? He's got to be 90 years old at least.
Yeah, he's up there.
But I mean, maybe that's because of who his name is, and maybe he's getting that audience that he gets. He's got a built-in crowd. But I don't say I would. I'm just hesitating a guess here. I don't think there's anybody under 30 that's there to see the guy.
No, 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 no,
You
no. Who
know
would who would know? Who would know who
what
he
I mean?
is?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about these people. I mean, Saint Jonathan Winters. I don't know. People don't know the guy.
Look, people don't know who Johnny Carson is today.
That's right.
People, you talk to somebody under 30 years old, they probably more than likely will not know who Johnny Carson was.
Yeah. Well, that's a generation that's, I mean, it's
Yeah,
historical, but you're
you
right.
know, I don't think young people today have any sense of history of any kind of history. Uh, I mean, when I was growing up, I was familiar with movies and actors and singers of the early part of the century that I was born in.
Yeah, no, I
You know,
agree. Right.
it doesn't seem like any people today, kids today, have any sense of any kind of anything historical. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because of the immediacy of the internet. I don't know. I mean, there's certainly some great comedians out there today. There always was, there always will be, and there's a lot more comedians today that are not that good because there's such a plethora of people that are doing this. When we started, just a handful of crazy people who thought about being a comedian.
We did our jobs very well to the point where we are today. We made it
Yeah,
look easy. We made it look easy. And it never was, it never will be. It's innate, but we made it look easy. Who said it to me? Somewhere, you know, at one point there were 4 comedy clubs in Iowa City, Iowa.
yeah, right, yeah,
11 people in Iowa City.
right, right,
You know what I mean? They didn't have to leave their houses to find us. When we
yeah,
first started the Improv catch, they were dangerous places. You had to search for them. You had to come and you had to find them. 2:30 in the morning, you talk about.
right,
We had
yeah,
people sitting in that room. They might have been dead, but they were there at 2:30 in the morning. And they would come and they would find out. It was an exciting time. You could, learn and grow. And it was exciting. Then, they started, comedy clubs opened up, then shows on television opened up. And then there were, I don't know who said it to me, but he said, every time a steel mill closes, there's another 10,000 comedians.
right.
And that's where, I guess you do good. We eat our young. We make it look too simple.
Well, cable television
Yes,
started the first boom,
right.
and HBO really was quite significant
Stand up
in
grew with HBO, absolutely.
yeah, and then the internet just exploded everything.
Young comedians, I guess they go right to YouTube or online. I don't know how you get started. I don't know where there's showcase clubs you can hang out with. Now it's pay to play. I was telling Bruce, you got to bring 10 people with you who are going to spend a certain amount of money in order to get on stage for 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Give me your own
That's
audience. It's crazy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Larry, what was it like for you in the New York days? Were you able to, was it a comfortable financially for you? Was it a terrible struggle? Like you hear so many of the comedians have such a tough time making it in the New York days before there was much money.
No, I was I was I was making money pretty quickly, and also when I started, I was also selling life insurance in Rockland County.
I remember.
So so I had a job and I had a wife. I was married to Wyla.
I remember.
Uh, and
Beautiful.
yeah, and she was working, and I had a job, and I really didn't leave the job that I had until I felt secure that I was going to be able to make money doing stand-up comedy. And when I started making money doing stand-up comedy, and then I got the National Lampoon show, I felt I was on my way, and I quit my job selling insurance, and I was making money emceeing at the clubs, and then I moved into Manhattan Plaza, uh, where Larry David and Kenny Kramer lived across from each other. I moved into that building, uh, and I had a brand new 1 bedroom apartment for $211 a month, overlooking the Hudson River in a brand new 45-story high rise, because the city took over the building from
Right. Well, it
the
was for arts.
company.
Right? It was just for the arts. And
No, 25% of the
25%.
residents were in entertainment. 25% of the residents were originally from the neighborhood. 25% of the residents were paying fair market prices, and the other 25 were, I think, senior citizens or something like that. But it was two 45-story towers right around the corner from Times
Beautiful.
Square in the
Right.
heart of Manhattan.
Across
That place was fabulous.
That was fabulous.
That was fabulous, man.
That was.
And it was based upon your income.
Yeah.
It was basically if you paid 25% of your income, which when I wasn't making any money, came out to $200 a month.
Right. Unbelievable. I paid $310 a month. I was on 58th and first in a 4-flight walk up. And $310. You can't be homeless in New York City for $310 a month.
Yeah.
Today. Yes, but the Manhattan Plaza was stunning. Sergio lived there too. Mike Sergio lived there. Larry lived there. Kramer lived there. You lived there.
Right.
Chris lived right across the street in one of the brownstones.
Right.
What a beautiful place. I wonder what the rent is there today. Must be insane.
I don't think it's as high as other places relative to that building, those two buildings. But there's still a tremendous demand, I'm sure, to get in there, to live there. And I was the first one in there. I was the first one in after the building was built. I had a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment on the 21st floor with hardwood floors.
You have a balcony?
Balcony, yeah.
I know, I remember. It was amazing, really amazing.
Yeah, were you ever in that? You were in that building, weren't you?
Yes, I didn't live there, no. But I mean, I think I was in your house, and I know that I was in Larry's house because I remember being there in around New Year's one year, and then I was back again in June to play poker or something, and he still had not cleaned up his New Year's Eve party stuff. So, and then Kramer was across the hall.
You know what I used to love when we used to play in the Broadway Show League?
Yeah,
I used to love that. We played softball in the Broadway Show League.
That was fun.
That was so much fun, man.
We saw each other every day, every night. We slept, we ate, we talked comedy, we did comedy. Those days, again, we helped each other.
Yeah.
Hey, man, maybe you should stop. Maybe you shouldn't move as much. Maybe you should change this word. Maybe you should do that. I don't know if that happens anymore. Or where.
Well, it certainly doesn't happen and hasn't been happening for the last 9 months. I can tell you that for sure.
And no one can predict what's going to happen. So it's a little bit of a scary time for the entertainment industry.
Well, the entertainment industry has suffered twice as much as the restaurant industry has, because there's something like 30% of all restaurant workers across the country, about 30% are completely out of work, and there's closer to about 60% or more of people in entertainment, actors, singers, comedians,
variety acts, live acts, right?
Yeah, that are completely out of work. Over 60%. It may even be higher than that. But the entertainment industry is closed down about 100%. There's no venue anywhere where you could see you can't even go, not even a movie theater.
Right.
It is.
I'm not a Zoom comedian. I couldn't do a Zoom show. I mean, guys are trying.
I actually kind of tried it. It's.
How did it work? No good, right?
Look, it's obviously not the same thing. There's nothing like being alive yourself in front of live human beings.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can't compare that with anything else.
Right. Wow.
And it's interesting to be able to watch Amazon Prime now, because Amazon takes Evening at the Improv all the way back. It doesn't show the first year or the second year, but it does show the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, seventh years. You guys can see yourselves just by looking for Evening at the Improv.
Really, I have that. I have Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I've been watching all you guys on Amazon Evening at the Improv, and what I used to love about it, and you guys, you couldn't have done it any other way. The stage started right. The seats were right there. I mean, right on top of everybody.
Oh yeah.
And it was a beautiful situation. Yeah. I was a part of it. It was great to be a part of it. I was a personal appearance agent just when the Evening at the Improv exploded and all the comedy clubs. And I used to be roommates with Barry Martyr.
Oh,
And,
really?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh man, he was really funny, man.
Yes.
He was a very, very funny guy. I used to we used to write together, actually. Uh, where is he in L.A. or
He's still
is
in LA. I mean, I think he's still working with Jerry a lot. He's very close to Jerry.
yeah. Well, Jerry wrote the foreword for his books, and he also was, I think, helpful writing his monologues for the beginning, early years of the series.
That's right. Barry wrote a lot when Jerry did the monologues on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Barry wrote. I know Barry helped write them, and of course the B movie. Who was the big star of the B movie? Barry, the B. That Jerry was kind enough to give the head B Barry, and I know he did that in honor of Barry.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Barry was very, very funny. Yeah. Yeah. I used to enjoy hanging out with him because he was that funny.
If
But
it,
no,
if it was like 82, 83, 84, you were in my living room if you went over to write with him.
okay. You lived in little Studio City?
No, 1010. Oh my God, 1010 North Kings Road, right down the block from the Improv.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
He's right.
Unbelievable. Hey, listen, I know that we can go on all day. I mean, we've actually gone, well over an hour and 20 minutes. This has been spectacular. You proved, Barry, that there's so much knowledge out there that only you could share this about you.
Yeah,
And only
I proved
Glenn can share this about Glenn. This has been spectacular.
I proved I don't need no stinking audience.
No,
You
man.
didn't have
let
any
me tell you,
nudity.
Barry, I didn't know how bright you were and how much depth you really have, man. It's been wonderful to get to know you again. Honestly.
Yeah, same here, Glenn. You and I go back a long, long, long time.
It's wonderful. It really
For
is. You
sure.
look good, and I can only wish you the best in a live audience someday.
Hey, this was
Okay.
great. Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you very much. I
Barry
enjoyed it.
Diamond,
Thank
Glenn
you,
Hirsch. What
Starr.
a great show. Thank you so much.
Send my love to Sue.
I will, man. And again, great to see you. Great to catch
Great
up.
to see you too, Glenn. God bless you guys. Stay well.
Same. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.